someone needs to call my husband. He's not picking up.
Madam, focus on breathing. The doctor is coming. Okay, good. Just breathe. Why are you looking at me like that? Where is my phone? Madam, please, not now. You are almost there.
Give me my phone. Something is wrong. I can feel it. Please. Just have your baby first. Please. He is not coming. Is he?
Helen had been timing her contraction since 4 in the morning. She had packed her hospital bag 3 weeks early. She had ironed Michael's shirt the night before, so he would look presentable when he came to collect her and the baby. She had saved a space in the baby's room for the photograph they will take together. Mother, father, child. The first picture of their family of 3. She had thought of everything. She had prepared for everything. She had not prepared for this. The labor came fast and hard. By the time the taxi dropped her at the entrance of the hospital in Port Harcourt, her hands were shaking and Michael's phone had already rung 11 times without answer. She told herself he was driving. She told herself the network was bad. She told herself the same stories women tell themselves when the truth is already standing in the room and they are not ready to look at it. The nurses moved quickly. They settled her into a bed, checked her, told her she was progressing well. She asked 4 different people to try Michael's number. None of them could reach him. She asked for her own phone and they told her to rest. She asked again and they brought it to her. And the moment it landed in her hand, her sister Sandra was already calling. She did not answer. She was mid-contraction. She breathed through it the way the antenatal class had taught her. In through the nose, out through the mouth. She was going to be calm. She was going to do this well. Michael would arrive and she would tell him it had moved faster than expected and he would feel terrible for missing the beginning and she would forgive him before he even finished apologizing because that was the kind of woman she was. Patient, steady, always giving the people she loved more grace than they deserved. Sandra called again. Then a message came through. A single image. No words attached, just the image. Helen looked at it for a long time. It was Michael, her Michael, standing in a rented hall she did not recognize, wearing an agbada she had never seen, beside a woman she had never met, while a crowd she did not know clapped around them. The timestamp on the photograph was 40 minutes ago. The venue was 40 minutes from the hospital. He had been 40 minutes away the entire time she had been calling. The contraction that hit her next was the worst one yet. She dropped the phone. She gripped the rail. She breathed. She did not scream, not because she was not in pain. She was in more pain than she had ever been in her life, but because somewhere beneath the agony and the shock and the thing that was cracking open inside her chest, a very quiet part, Helen made a decision. She was going to have this baby first. Everything else could wait. Her daughter came into the world at 11:30 on a Tuesday morning. 7 pounds, 2 ounces, a full head of dark hair, and a cry that filled the entire ward. The nurses said she was beautiful. Helen held her and agreed. She did not cry. She looked at this small face, this completely innocent, completely perfect face, and she felt something move through her that she did not have a name for yet. It was not happiness. It was not grief. It was something harder and quieter than both. It was the feeling of a woman who has just understood exactly what she is fighting for. She named her Adeaze. She called no one except her sister. Sandra arrived within the hour, eyes red, arms wide, and Helen let herself be held for exactly 2 minutes. Then she sat up straight, looked her sister in the eye, and said 4 words. Don't say anything yet. Sandra, who had spent the taxi ride preparing a speech, closed her mouth. Helen spent the rest of that day in the hospital bed with her daughter on her chest and her mind moving through everything quietly and carefully, the way she had always done when a problem required more than emotion. She did not post anything. She did not call Michael. She did not respond to the messages that had begun to pile up from family members who had seen the photograph and were now sending her everything from shock to pity to the kind of commentary that helps no one. She turned the phone face down. She looked at Adeaze. She breathed. Michael called at 7 in the evening. She watched his name on the screen until it stopped flashing. Then she put the phone back down and went to sleep. He came to the hospital the following morning. She knew he would. Michael had never been able to sit with silence. He arrived with a paper bag of fruits she had not asked for, wearing the expression of a man who had rehearsed several versions of an explanation and was still not sure which one to use. He stopped when he saw her sitting up, feeding Adeaze, completely composed. He said her name. She looked at him like you look at a wall, calm, without heat, without invitation. He sat in the chair beside the bed and began. He spoke for a long time. He used words like tradition and pressure, and it was not what she thought, and his family had arranged it, and he had not known how to tell her, and he was sorry, and she had to understand. He spoke, and the paper bag of fruit sat untouched on the bedside table, and Helen looked at her daughter and said nothing. When he finally stopped speaking, she turned to face him. "You can go," she said. "Helen, Michael, you can go." He left. He came back twice more that week. She did not raise her voice either time. She did not cry in front of him. She answered only what required an answer and offered nothing else. On the 4th day, she told him plainly that she needed space to heal and that she would be staying with her sister. He agreed, relieved, she could see, to have a version of this that did not require him to be a villain in his own story. He did not yet understand that the story had already been written. He simply had not read his ending yet. Helen moved into Sandra's flat in Rumola with Adeaze and 2 suitcases and a laptop. She had a degree in business administration that she had put aside 6 years ago when Michael suggested she manage the home and support his import business instead. She had a mind that had always worked faster than she let people see, and she had something else now. Something forged in that hospital room on the morning her husband chose a party over her labor. She had clarity. She spent Adeaze's nap times studying. She reached out to a former lecturer who remembered her. She took a short consulting contract that turned into a longer one. She was careful with every naira. She was strategic with every connection. She did not post her progress online. She did not announce her plans. She moved the way she had breathed through those contractions, without drama, without stopping, one thing at a time. Michael, meanwhile, was living the version of life he had chosen. The new wife's name was Chisom. She was 24. She had been drawn in by Michael's confidence and his talk of business and the life he had promised her. What she discovered over the month that followed was a man whose business was already struggling before the wedding, whose debts were larger than his assets, and whose charm curdled quickly when things did not go his way. By the end of the 1st year, she had moved back to her parents' house in Owerri. By the end of the 2nd year, the marriage existed only on paper. Michael's mother, who had orchestrated the entire arrangement, who had convinced her son that Helen was too comfortable and that a more traditional wife would serve him better, watched the 2nd marriage collapse with a silence she had not prepared for. She had expected triumph. She had received consequences instead. Helen registered her company in the 2nd year. It was a supply chain consulting firm, small at first, then not small. She was good at this, better than she had known when she was spending her best hours managing a household for a man who did not understand what he had. Her clients were mostly mid-sized businesses in Port Harcourt and Abuja. She hired carefully, she grew slowly, she did not rush. She had learned the cost of trusting momentum before the foundation was ready. Adeaze grew alongside the business. She was bright and loud and looked so much like Helen that strangers sometimes said so before they knew who her mother was. Helen raised her with intention. She taught her daughter that softness and strength were not opposites.
She taught her by example because example was the only lesson that lasted. She did not speak badly of Michael in front of Adaeze. She simply built a life so full that there was no empty space left for bitterness to settle. Michael called on a Thursday evening in the third year. Helen was reviewing a contract when her phone lit up. She looked at it for a moment, then she answered. His voice was different. The rehearsed confidence was gone. What was left was something she recognized as a man who had finally run out of road. He asked if they could meet. He said there were things he needed to say. She agreed, calmly, without warmth, without cruelty, and told him to come to her office on Friday.
He arrived on time. She did not keep him waiting. She was behind her desk when he entered, and she gestured to the chair across from her the way she gestured to any visitor, professionally, without theater. He looked around the office. She watched him take it in. The staff visible through the glass partition, the framed contract on the wall, the quiet, organized evidence of 3 years of work he had not been present for. He sat down. He spoke for a long time again, but this time it was different. There was no explanation, no justification. There was only a man accounting for the damage he had done to her, to Adaeze, to the years he could not give back. He said he had been wrong. He said he had been manipulated by his family and had been too weak to stand for what mattered. He said he had spent 3 years understanding what he lost on the morning she was in that hospital room alone. Helen listened to every word. When he finished, the office was quiet. Outside, a phone rang at the front desk and was answered. A courier arrived and left. The ordinary business of the day continued around them. Helen folded her hands on the desk. She said, "I believe you. I believe that you mean what you are saying right now. And I want you to know that I forgave you a long time ago. Not for you, for myself and for Adaeze." Michael exhaled. Something in his posture shifted. Hope, perhaps. Helen continued. But forgiveness is not the same as return. I want you to look at this office. Look at what I built in the years you were busy choosing. I am not the woman who was waiting for you to come back. I stopped being her before I left that hospital. What you are asking for no longer exists. And that is not punishment, Michael. That is just the truth. She stood. She extended her hand across the desk. Steady, clean, final. You are Adaeze's father, and you will always have access to your daughter. I will not take that from her. But this conversation is finished. He shook her hand. He walked out of her office and into the rest of his life, which was smaller now and quieter, and full of the particular weight that comes not from losing something you never valued, but from finally understanding, too late, exactly what it was worth. Helen sat back down. She picked up her pen. She returned to the contract. Outside her window, Port Harcourt moved through its afternoon. The city was loud and golden and completely indifferent. And in the middle of it, a woman who had been left alone on the hardest morning of her life continued, without drama, without applause, to build. Was Helen right to walk away completely, or should she have given him one more chance? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If this story touched you, please like and subscribe. Share it with someone who needs it today, and drop a comment. We want to hear from you. God bless you.